Hi everyone, I'm Damien.
And I'm Jeremy.
Welcome to our Suburb Data podcast, where we cover everything from property investing to expert busting. If you're new here, we share our personal and professional experiences from over 20 years in the game. So you skip the mistakes we made and go straight to property investment success. Jez, today we're going to be discussing why tracking your money is key to financial freedom.
Yeah, and because I'm not very good at this, I'm just going to be blasting you with questions.
You're pretty good with your money management, aren't you?
No comment.
I think the idea is, look, we obviously talk a lot about property, and I thought it'd be good to get a bit of finance in there. Again, just sharing our experience and hopefully show a bit of value add. So if this is something that you're interested in, just put a comment in the comment section, and we can obviously expand on it depending on if this is something that people want to listen to. But very close to property investing, isn't it? Money management is a key part, and it's something that I've always been interested in.
Yeah, when did that happen? What was it that sort of triggered this keen interest?
I would say, actually, before we go into that, I want to share a couple quotes.
Oh,
Alrighty. So I'm reading a book, The Psychology of Money. We don't get paid for any of this. It's just Jeremy and I bag out books all the time, but there are some key things I thought were actually pretty good in the book, and already sort of resonates with what I guess that connection I have with money. But I like, let me just get started. So how about this, Jez? The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want to do.
okay.
And I think there you go. We've got a bit of cheering in the background. I think it's mainly just control. That's the reason why we invest. It's not about being greedy. It's more about securing our financial future. And that's something that we'll dive into. I think that here we got another quote: money's greatest intrinsic value, the ability to controlling your time, pretty much, choosing what you want to do. And I would say that, like, examples could be, I think we live in a world today where people are living week to week and struggling with, I guess, maybe the high rents. Like, let's look at Sydney as an example, but other suburbs also, or states, I would say, or cities. But I think for some people, just having a couple of days off causes them a lot of stress. So I think that's, again, something I'm going to touch on. Another one is the big one, and this is something that I've experienced, is changing jobs. Like, a lot of people hate their job, but they're sort of locked into the golden handcuffs because it's like, is it going to be better going and moving to a new role? Maybe, look, if there's a big increase in income, maybe. But again, I think that's another thing is, like, you lose your job, you don't want to have to stress about money. It buys you time if you've got your buffers in place, or just cash in reserve. 6-month emergency expenses, which I'll talk about shortly. This is another interesting thing I read in chapter 8. It's the money in the car paradox. So interesting. No one's really impressed by the possessions someone has. It's like, apparently that's what it says in the book. And it's more about, let's say you see someone in a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. You don't really think, oh, wow, look at them. They've got a Ferrari or Lamborghini. People sort of picture it as, how would I look like if I'm in that car? Like, you sort of think of it from a different aspect. And I thought that was really interesting in the book. Is that how you sort of see it? Like, if you see a really good car, do you go, oh, wow, that person's really successful, or this and that, or not?
I think I wonder. Yeah, I question. I wonder where their money came from.
The other thing is spending money to show. Well, actually, back to that point, I think a lot of people will just show you what you want to see. So they might have that really nice car, but is it funded by a massive loan? Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. So that's in chapter 9. And then I won't bore everyone else with it, but yeah, it was just interesting just going through the book. Here's another one, last one. The problem for many of us is that it's easy to find rich role models. It's harder to find wealthy ones because, by definition, their success is more hidden. So a lot of people that are boasting online, a lot of people might think, oh, I have to follow their way. But I think you sort of know, don't you? Like, if you go on social media, the people that, I guess, what am I trying to say? in the book, it's saying it's harder to find these sort of role models, but I don't think it is. I think there are really good role models out there. I'll just be wary of the ones that sort of flash it. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of flashing that is just marketing. Yeah, you want to show yourself as being successful. You can have this success too. Uh, how are you going to market yourself as an expert if you
Mm.
don't have flash?
Let's start with the episode. So I guess what was your first question that you mentioned? So
Yeah,
what?
just what was it that started off for you? You say you love it. What was it
Uh,
that triggered it?
I would say in my 20s, I was just like all over the shop. I had really no idea about money management. I felt like I didn't like relying on paycheck to paycheck. So I sort of went through the experience of not having, I guess, a lot. Like, obviously, I had a good education, a lot of opportunities. But I think for me, the main thing was just I was worried that if I lose my job, I could only survive maybe for a couple months, a month or two. And I didn't really want to rely on my parents in any way. So for me, it was more about not relying on anyone, my family members or my employment in any way. So that's what sort of helped me take control of. I need to understand, I guess, money in that way.
And yeah, there's a lot of people I assume who they just don't even look at their financial situation.
Mm.
And in your experience, you've obviously helped a lot of clients look after their money. Why do you think it is that people don't look at their financial situation?
Maybe complexity. It's just not understanding. Like it is something I'm going to look to do is maybe build out a spreadsheet. But there's a lot of budgets you can find online. But I think a lot of people really don't understand what their surplus cash flow is. And there's typically, I would say, a lot of waste or potentially slippage in their finances. So the best way I would say to start out is that you've got your income, you've got all your expenses, work out what your surplus is like. What should you be targeting every month? And then track that. Just make sure that you're hitting those goals, because what I find is a lot of people just have that credit card and they just tap, 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 tap. So it's so easy to go out and spend money on clothes or dining out, especially. Your costs can be quite high. So you need to have a system in place where you're allocating funds. You might have maybe 3 or 4 different accounts that you can sort of move things around. But that's what I would say to that question.
And when you first started
Mm,
tracking where you're spending your money,
mm.
was there anything that sort of surprised you? Any sort of wake up calls?
Um, Not really. Once I sort of put it all on paper, like having all my fixed costs there, I know that, okay, this is what I need to allocate. This is constant. It's not going to change. So I looked at it from an accounting perspective and I'm like, okay, these are the variables. What I found was initially what I used to do was give myself like a weekly allowance on like a separate card. And then you use that just for your lifestyle, be it maybe coffees or dining out, seeing friends, whatever it might be. And it'd be really easy to overspend. Like, let's say you give yourself a $300 a week allocation, like that goes really quickly. And then you can easily pivot to the credit card or just open up your online banking and go, I'll just give myself a top up. And there's
Mm.
nothing wrong with that. But when you're in your accumulation phase and you really want to try and get that first property, you need to be a bit stricter. I'm a lot looser now. Like, you want to enjoy it a little bit more or give yourself a bigger allocation. But I think having things in place where you need to understand what levers you've got to play with to be able to optimize your money management, to build out your portfolio. I think it's more important early on. And then once you start building up some assets, then you can sort of free yourself up depending on your lifestyle. But I wouldn't say skimp too much. Like, I like my coffees.
Mm.
You know, it's just about like, do you go out and buy 3, 4 coffees? No, it might be like 1 a day. So if you find value out of that, go for it. And I wouldn't tell people to stop doing things, but if you've got like, let's say you're trying to build towards that first property, but you're like, oh, I can't afford to save, but then you're buying clothes every week, you're going out every week. There needs to be sacrifices, especially early on, to buy that first property. And I've seen people make the change. Like, I've seen people buy a car that's really expensive and then they realize they want to get into property. They'll sell it, downgrade, get the cash just so they can get that first property sooner rather than later.
Yeah, buy the assets so that later on in life you can buy those liabilities.
But it's a lot harder now because social media is all like now,
Mm.
I want it now. So people don't want to wait, do they?
Yeah. And when you've seen people attempting to manage their money,
Mm.
what are some of the mistakes that you see them making?
I would say the credit card is the big one. Like having a credit card, and look, it works. People go, "Oh, I want to get the travel credit points."
Ah,
They like to sort of churn their credit cards, get the points, keep doing that. But then, are you overspending? What's your limit like? So I think it's good if you can automate that and maybe have all your direct debits going on there, and you put a limit so you're not overspending. But I would just say that a lot of people don't realize, like, is their surplus or their offset account or bank balance growing, or isn't it? So every month, what you'd want to understand is, well, let's say I've got a surplus of $1,000 a month. Should be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. But if it's staying at zero the whole time and you're not actually trapping that surplus, where's the money going? So I think once you put systems in place, and you can just, with the online banking, it's so easy just to set up an automatic transfer once a month, maybe one for your bills, one for your lifestyle, and you have your primary account potentially for all your savings or your buffer, then you're okay. I've seen people with like 10 different offsets. I think that's very
10.
granular.
Wow.
I'm not a big fan of the percentage systems that people use. Like I allocate a certain percentage to my um, different bank accounts. I prefer to go, okay, well, these are my fixed bills. These are my variable bills. If my income increases, then it means I've got more surplus to go invest, or I might pivot and maybe update some of my variable expenses and have a bit more play money potentially.
Mm.
So it just depends on what stage you're at. So that's the first step, is where am I at now? Where do I want to be? How do I get there?
Yeah. So some of this sounds quite complicated. What if it's all just too overwhelming for someone? What's an easy start that someone could make?
That's a really good question. What's an easy start? Well, it's not going to, anything easy's, anything difficult's not easy, is it? Is that
By
right?
definition.
Did I get that definition
Yeah.
right? So it's just really sitting down, and I would look at maybe once, like maybe go back 6 months like behind and go, okay, well, where was I at, um, 1st of November? Look at my bank balance, 1st of December, 1st of January, 1st of February, and have a look. Is my bank balance growing based on what my income is, my expenses, and what's left over? Like, are those accounts aligning? Like, if I'm seeing myself going backwards the last 6 months, but I'm looking at I've put everything on a spreadsheet or a piece of paper. This is my income. This is the average of all my expenses. If I'm supposed to be saving 3,000 a month, but I'm going backwards, you need to have a hard look at yourself,
Mm.
because where is that money going? Look, you could have things like the big holiday, but you want to factor your holidays in your budget. And I'm a big fan of that. Like, I love travel, and I think it's important to have things in place that you enjoy doing. Like, don't have a gym membership if you don't go to the gym. Go for a jog, or find some things that you like doing that suits you. So a lot of people have subscriptions that don't even utilize.
Yeah. So it's not about just not spending. I've heard you use this term, spending intentionally.
Mm.
Yeah, give us an example. What do you mean by that?
I'd say the coffee. Perfect example. Yeah, I can make a coffee at home. Maybe I just want to get out, fresh air, switch off, reset. So they're like, what do you get value from? Could be car shopping. So I'm sort of looking at cars at the moment. It's with the Excel sheet and overanalyzing. It's a complex world out there, but it's like there's so many options, and you can be inundated. But I still want to be smart too. Yes, you could get a really flashy car, but I'm not interested in that. It's more about what's going to suit my lifestyle and the type of driving that I do potentially. So I don't need anything, like I said, flash. As long as the air conditioning and Apple Play work, I'm pretty happy, and it gets up the hills good. But I think it's all about value. What do you value, and where do you want to allocate your money? So even with clothes, like, look, some people might like to update their wardrobes, but it's a matter of are you wearing those specific type of clothing? There's no point buying like a cheap shirt, but then you don't wear it, but that premium shirt you wear all the time. So I guess cost per use is going to have a lot more value because you like wearing that piece of clothing. So what do you find value in, I think,
Mm.
is a really key part.
Do you believe that you have to be frugal in order to build wealth?
Ah, we talk about this a lot. I think it depends on where you're at, like what your income is, and if you look at your income and your expenses early on, there might be sacrifices. You might have to drink the Moccona coffee and the Nescafe if you want to try and save that extra $4 a day or $5 a day to try and get towards that first property. All that little bit helps. So I think just having a bit of a balance there is important. Look, um, some people out there might be really careful with their money, and that's fine. Like, I get it. But I find value in buying dinner for my friends or sharing experiences. Like, I find a lot of value in that. So, what am I trying to say here? I don't think it's healthy being too tight
Mm, yeah.
because I guess property investment, there is a lot of potentially greed within the industry. I think giving is a really important quality. And I think the frugal, it just really, again, comes down to your circumstances. And if you've got it all on a paper, this is my income, this is my expenses, this is my surplus. If I'm starting from zero, look, it might take me 2 to 3 years to buy that first property. Can I speed that process up a little bit? But look, if you cut a little bit back here and there, it might cost you an extra month, worst case scenario. So
Mm.
you,
Right.
you got to bring your mentality into it too.
Yeah, yeah. So about that mentality, you're not
Mm,
trying to be ultra tight.
mm.
What is the underlying mindset behind all this then?
I think anything that you spend, make sure you find value in it. Don't go spend like massive amount on a gym membership if you don't use it, or have 3 or 4 different like Netflix, Stan, YouTube Premium, like having all these subscriptions. Like maybe you only need one of those. So for me, it's about trying to figure out the lifestyle that you've got now, and maybe rent's another one. Like, why? Let's say you're renting, maybe you cut back on a smaller place initially to try and build up that deposit for that first investment or your first home to get there a little bit sooner. Where I think a lot of the mentality now is that I want it now. I don't want to wait for that delayed gratification.
Mm,
You don't need that expensive car now. You might just need a simple car. So it's like, how do you get to that goal a lot quicker? The car's one I've seen a lot. A lot of people get into car leases and then they go to the broker. Hey, I want to buy a property. Oh, you've just got a car lease or you got a novated lease. They don't think about that. So typically you got to try and pay that out. You got the balloon payment. So yeah, again, you just need to sort of look at your circumstances and work out what is your goal and how quickly do you want to accumulate. But I think accumulation is the big thing. You want to try and get those properties as soon as possible, and then you can sort of loosen up a bit, and maybe your holiday budget might be 1,000 a year. You might go, all right, I really value travel. I'm going to spend 8,000 a year now because I've got my portfolio. So it's all about adjusting it every year, having a review, put it in a calendar once a year. But before, I would do it every month. Like, check my balances, what my surplus is now. It's sort of like every 4 months. I have everything automated. I don't really need to think about it.
Okay, so there was a point in time when you were, well, you had this period of time where you were focused on not spending, paying off debt, and then there was a switch to building wealth.
Well, I found other ways. So I was in accounting, had a higher salary back in, what was that, about 2016, and then I moved to Melbourne. I took a significant pay cut. So the example that I brought up in the book, it was really hard for me changing industries, leaving my life in Sydney and moving to Melbourne. I'm like, what am I doing? And I remember driving to Melbourne thinking, what am I doing? Is this the right decision? And it was, because the experience that I gained and the people I met, and if it wasn't for that, we would have never have met. We wouldn't have built the relationship that we did. So your brain sort of thinks to the negatives, but there were a lot of
Mm,
positives in the experience. And money management was a key thing. And I was always motivated, and we talked a lot to just build that portfolio just to free up ourselves and free up that time. But making that decision was most probably one of the hardest things for me because I knew no one in Melbourne. I was just
mm,
winging it. But I thought the worst case scenario is I don't like this whole property industry. I'll just move back to accounting. But I just every day train going to that accounting job. I just felt empty
mm,
inside, and it's that sunk cost bias, isn't it? Because I was like, I studied accounting, did finance. What am I doing shifting careers? Like, am I crazy? But every time I went into the office, I loved it. I loved helping people. I loved helping people maximize their money management, educating people around property investing. And a lot of it before, when I was in accounting, I would just listen to property podcasts. I'd go to the seminars. I would just listen on the way to work. I don't do that now, but just because I'm very skeptical and I know I've not learned a lot within the industry, but having that opportunity to make that move was very difficult. And I think a lot of people are in that situation where they're not happy um, with their employment. And I say, look, give it a go. But if you do have the buffer behind you, I had that buffer behind me,
Mm.
but I was second guessing myself when I moved from accounting to property. I was like, what am I doing? I'm taking a huge pay cut to go into this industry, but I'm like, worst case, if I don't make the move, everything's just going to be the
Yeah,
same.
you can fall back. Yeah. And when you're managing your personal finances,
Hmm.
obviously there's a few things you need to track, like you're talking about it's mostly spending.
Mm.
What about once that individual has become an investor and they're continuing to track their spending, but I assume there's a big switch there. You're tracking different things now. So is there a different kind of skill set that you've got to learn with money management once you're an investor?
Not really, because I think you look at your personal circumstances and you know what your sort of cash flows are because you're tracking it. And then you know, if I buy this property at this price point, my cash flows are going to shift. And then, really, with property, as we know, it's like if you've got a good property manager, it's really a set and forget approach. Like you do your yearly revisions to see, okay, is the property performing or isn't it? But nothing really changes because the property manager does all the, I guess, that takes all the expenses. And actually, when I did move to Melbourne, it was tight. Like I wasn't earning a lot. I was learning the ropes, learning a new skill set. And look, I'll share it. Like I always tried to figure out how could I make extra money. Like how can I make? Like I was looking at ways, like obviously being really savvy um, on certain things, like just making sure that am I getting the best insurance premiums, personal car insurances. I did a bit of the punting. I don't know if I should mention that, but back then it was a lot easier. So I did follow a group. And look, if you're into the NRL, tripod, I don't condone betting or anything like that in any way because, again, it's a big mental thing. But I had an Excel spreadsheet. And I think I've showed you before. This was years ago. I only do it just on the NRL here and there, so not much these days. But I was very, very analytical, and a lot of people lose money from gambling, and it's a big thing, and people impacts their lives, their relationships, and for me, it was like I found a way to make a little bit of money on the side. And it's funny with a lot of these bookies, if you make money, they'll ban you. So they're happy to take your money if you're constantly losing. But I sort of came up with again, really educated myself, and it can be really easy on the app just to bang, bang, bang. You post a bet, but those early years helped me a lot because I was making these funds. It's been a lot harder the last 3-4 years, so that's why I don't dabble in it. I've got my own. I just find that it's another thing that it's like another job. You got to take time out. You got to do your research, and a lot of the time, if you're not beating, like I think it's around 52% at the line odds, you don't make a profit. So I think it's only 1 to 2% of like punters make money from it. So for me, back then, it was good because it helped me when I was on that low income to build up a bit of that surplus and my lifestyle back then. But that back then you could get bonus bets and free bets. But now that's all gone. And like I said, you make money, they'll ban you real quick.
Yeah, I used to work with a guy, and he said casinos they're for losers. And he said no, literally, because
Mm.
if you're a winner, you get banned.
Well, you want to get out of there quickly, don't you? So,
Oh,
but
don't even want to
the
get
group,
there.
like, look, I'd give them a shout out, like the Tripod NRL betting. Like, I do still listen to the guys. Like, I think they do a good job with their NRL, and I just do it for really the NRL talk. So, if you are a fan of
Mhm.
the rugby league, but I won't touch on that too much. But
All right. What if someone is just starting out? What's the easiest way for them to get started in tracking their finances?
easiest way is, like I said, I think mentioned before, just put it down on a piece of paper, work out your income expenses. I'm going to try and come up with something in the next sort of 6 to 12 months that maybe I can share with everyone to to be able to just make it as simple as possible. Because I think there's a lot of calculators and spreadsheets out there that are just super complicated. And I think it's just about having a minimal approach, something that's not really difficult. Because I think a lot of people see it, oh, it's too difficult. I don't want to know about it. I don't
Overwhelming.
want to make sacrifice. I just want to live for now.
Mm.
And that's it. Like they don't sit down. And I guess you need to find your own motivation. Like that was a motivation for me to try and get ahead and not be reliant on anyone else. So you need to find that yourself. And I think a lot of people just feel lost with it all. So yeah, like I said, hopefully people find a bit of value in this. And if you've got questions, put it in the comments section. But I think, Jez, just like maybe start with going backwards 6 months, and then maybe every month from now on, maybe on the 30th, you set a reminder in your calendar, 30th, check surplus, and then the next month, check your bank balance, and then the next month, and just make sure to see if that's growing. But I would think that work out what your fixed bills are, have a card for that. Your direct debits, your bills, whatever it might be, and then you've got your other card for all your variable expenses. Could be like your haircut, your dining out, your clothing. You got the two. You transfer a certain amount of money into each of those accounts at the end of the month, and then your main surplus is in your main account. So 3 accounts. You've got your main savings account where all your pay goes into, or all your income. And you've got another account where all your bills sit, and then you've got another account where all your variable bills are, and then you just set it all on autopilot. So in the savings account, you just have all your wages go in once a month. Let's say, okay, I need $3,000 for all my bills and rent, whatever it might be, goes over here. And then I might allocate a little bit of money over here. How much money's left over? And I shouldn't be dipping back into that account. That's how you sort of understand, because without knowing that your account is growing, you're going behind.
Okay. Best financial habit, one that's had the biggest impact, maybe in your life or you've seen other people. What would you pick?
Oh, invest in property.
Financial habit. Then.
Financial habit. I think just being aware and not going on impulse. New iPhone's going, I'm just going to buy it without thinking. Like sit back, think about it. Like let's say you're on Amazon or whatever it might be. Maybe don't make that purchase right away. Just really think about, do you really need this? Because I guess another thing that we haven't spoken about is like clutter. Like you buy things, extra cleaning, maybe it takes up space in your home. So just be intentional with what you are purchasing, and just be very wary of, I guess, the whole social media, buy now, really try and just set yourself up, because if you can, that's how you get your time back. You really want to be working for someone, unless you love your job, that's fine. But I think a lot of people out there want to have a bit more of that freedom and do what they want, have that flexibility, because that's all it's really about, isn't it?
Getting your time back. Going back in time,
yes.
what would you do differently?
I think everyone says this, but I think start earlier. Everyone says start earlier. And then it was all about the cars when I was younger. I wasn't at the cars. I didn't even think about property investing. I think there's obviously a lot more education around it these days. But as you know, the earlier that you get in, the better. And then just try and find a higher performing property. But I think I'd track my finances a lot earlier and have everything. Because actually one thing, I did track my money for a long period. So before I used the automatic transfer process, like your variables, your fixed bills, and then your main savings, so those 3 accounts, I would track my money 3 years straight. I tracked it. It was in an app. I think it automatically did it. You track it, and then I'd review it every year. And then what I'd do is, okay, that's great, but it never stopped me from overspending. So I would look at it from behind. Like I look at what I've spent, but I never made the adjustment. So I sort of know roughly what my surplus should be. But if I was going out, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, just spend it. So I found that had a lot of slippage in what I was doing. Now I try and forward look and go, okay, well, this is my allocation for the month. Let's try and stick to that. So that would be my main thing.
Yeah. All right. Great advice. Good to hear from you. Just sharing your personal experience. So where can listeners go, Damo?
Well, I think a summary, maybe, actually, this is a good point. So our assistant to the regional manager sent something through. So what was that question, assistant to the regional manager?
My idea was maybe a good suggestion could be to withdraw cash, say maybe every month or so you budget, or weekly, whatever your money is, you pull out $500 in cash. Because the trick is when you're tapping your card, you don't see it. But if you pull out $500 in cash and then that cash is gone, it's real, it's tangible, you're broke. You can see that money has been spent. So it's more real. It gives you that realization. That's worked for me.
I think that's a really good point, because previously I did like the weekly allocation. Like I think it was on a Thursday, you give yourself that weekly allocation. And I think early on, it's been a while now, I did withdraw cash from time to time. And the assistant to the regional manager there, Adam, thank you, the having cash makes it more real, doesn't it? So like, let's say a lot of people, you lose money, be it in the stock market or whatever it might be, or Melbourne Cup, it hurts more. But if you win, it's like, or you've got more money coming back to you. It's like, I want more and more and more. So what's that? What do they call it? There's like a saying for it. When you lose money, you feel it a lot more. I don't know what the analogy is, but back to that point is, seeing that cash physically there, I think it does help. So maybe that's a really good habit people could do, is you withdraw the cash, you see it, and you just spend what you've got and try and just be within your means.
Live within your means.
But I think a summary would be, first step is, where are you now? Okay. And then where do you want to go? And what do you need to change? Like, what's your plan to get there? They're the three things. And you could just be like, you know what? No, I'm just going to enjoy myself. It's too hard. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. But I guess don't hammer all the people that are maybe trying to get ahead for making those sacrifices early on. Because as investors, that's what we have to do, don't we? We have to make those sacrifices.
Yeah, it's all that deferred gratification, isn't it?
But you know about it too. Like, you were at a point where you were week to week, weren't you, Jez? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I think when you go through it, you're like, oh, okay. And I know people have had it harder than us, but and I can see, like, let's use Sydney as an example. Like, let's say you're just starting out, you're renting in Sydney. How do you save? Like, how do you find that surplus? If you're paying, $600, $700, $800 a week and you're alone, like, how do you find surplus cash flow? You'd have to maybe look at flatmates.com and try and move in with someone, or maybe move back at home for a period of time. And that's a sacrifice you might need to make to try and get ahead. And I think sometimes that sacrifice is worth it, rather than being employed by an employer that you're not happy with and having no control over your time. I think that's more important than having the stress that having nothing brings. All righty, Jez. So where can you ask me, and I'll ask you, where do listeners go for more resources?
Well, you can subscribe and get notified when we bring out some new content like this. And if this is the sort of content you're interested in, give us a like, leave a comment.
And we obviously focus on property investing. We're going to have a lot more content coming out this year. But if money management is something, or trying to find ways to get ahead, even like things like the carsales.com app, you can go on there and you can get, I think it's 6% discount if you download the app at any BP. There you go. If you want those little money hacks here and there, I can come up with something in the future. Look, it all adds up, $3, $4 a week, or every time you top up. But if it's something of interest to you, leave a comment, like, subscribe, share to the world. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and see you in our next episode. Bye for now, and take care.